Okay, so we are continuing, maybe concluding. Tehilim 116. Okay, so this is the fourth perek of Hallel, and since this is our short day, we'll do a quick review, and then I'd say I have all of the elements I think of like the main idea, and the questions are going to come together. So it's kind of dependent on you, kind of dependent on me. All right, so let's just reread it in English just to get ourselves back into it. And again, this is what we on half Hallel we start at 12, but we're starting at the beginning. I love him. Oh, and just also PSA, the tenses, you can make it up however you want. Yeah. I love him, for Hashem hears my voice, my supplications, for he has inclined his ear to me, and in my days shall I call. The travails of death encircled me, the confines of the grave have found me. Distress and grief I would find. Then I would invoke the name of Hashem, saying, please Hashem, deliver my soul. Gracious is Hashem and righteous, our God is merciful. Hashem protects the simpletons. I was brought low, but he saved me. Return my soul to your rest, for Hashem has been kind to you. For you have delivered my soul from death, my ears from tears, my feet from stumbling. I shall walk before Hashem in the land of the living. I have trusted, although I say I suffer exceedingly. I said in my haste, all mankind is deceitful. How can I repay Hashem for all his bounty to me? I raise the cup of salvations, and the name of Hashem I will invoke. My vows to Hashem I will pay, in the presence now of his entire people. Difficult in the eyes of Hashem is the death of his devout ones. Please Hashem, for I am your servant. I am your servant, the son of your handmaid. You have released my bonds. To you I will sacrifice a thanksgiving offering, and the name of Hashem I will call. My vows to Hashem I will pay, in the presence now of his entire people, in the courtyards of the house of Hashem, in your midst, O Jerusalem, Hallelujah. Yeah, so the split we said is pretty clear. It's between 11 and 12. Anyone remember or want to reconstruct how we characterize the two halves? And I think we characterize the second one more solidly than the first.
So I wasn't there, but I listened to the recording today. I think the second half was about like indebtedness to Hashem, something like that.
Yeah, second half is indebtedness and repaying his debt. That seems pretty clear. Because I think literally, well, not literally every puzzle, but a lot of psukim. Yeah. And then the first half is less clear. So how I think we did not settle on a way to characterize it, but we did, vaguely describe it. So what would you say?
I feel like it was something like when you're in like the depths of despair, like then you sort of have nowhere else to turn other than
right. So we definitely said that for 6, right? And that was the only like idea we got, or the main idea we got out of it. Yeah. So just I guess while we'll review that idea in particular later. So how would we say the rest of it? It's not that the rest of it is off topic, but. So vaguely speaking, which is all we're doing right now, is it seems to be this is the situation of Tzara that he is indebted for later on. And him talking about what he does in that situation of Tzara, of turning to Hashem, calling his name, asking him to save the soul, depending on him alone. So first half is the Tzara, and then there's no actual Geula that is referenced, I don't think. I mean, I guess 8. I guess 8 is kind of like that, but that sounds like it's talking about the past also, that he's done this in the past. But then 12 is like post Geula, and how he repays Hashem. Okay, so what I want to do is, so we did not really attempt to unify the two any more beyond that. We read through the Radak, and so what I want to do is I want to highlight specific phrases from the Radak to gear our minds towards a certain thing. And you can see on the screen, I underlined a bunch of stuff and I minimized a bunch of stuff. So we're only gonna read the underlined part, just to like line it up. This is think of this as kind of like, I don't know if anyone is annoyed by this, but if you're watching a series and like you, like a TV series or a mini series, and then like they have a recap before the coming episode, and I skip it because I don't like having the important, that they're recapping the parts that are gonna like be part of the plot, So think of this like that. Okay, so if you don't want to hear this, then go to your ears. Yeah. So first one is in topic Aleph on Ki Yishma Hashem, Ahavti Ki Yishma Hashem. So we're just reading the underlined part. Ki hu shomea es koliv es tachanunai b'chol eitz she'ekra ehu. So that's something that we did not talk about. What does it mean that God listens to his voice and supplication whenever he calls out to him? What's being emphasized by the b'chol eitz she'ekra ehu? I think there's at least two ways to interpret it. And you can look at the pasuk. I mean, the pasuk says, "Ahavti ki Hashem Hashem es." Oh, that's all it says. Oh, and then also the second pasuk, "Ki hita ozno li uveyamai ekra." What situation is he talking about here? Yeah. So there's two possibilities. Basically, you can say that it's talking about a situation of tzara, or it's talking about any situation. From the Radak, sounds like b'chol es she'ekra ehu, sounds like any situation, unless you say he's only calling out in the time of tzara. And then skip, well, I guess the only one I'm talking to now is you. Turn to the back page and look at the, oh, I forgot to include this one. Never mind, don't turn to the back page.
Crazy idea. They should have a whole show with just those previews.
They probably, yeah, there are probably supercuts like that that you can watch. Yeah. Really good. It's like the people who, there's a popular show and like they want to watch it, but they don't like watching shows. So they just read the Wikipedia article, and they sound like they think that they got it. I don't know. I never understood those people. But someone said, I think it was the Meiri, on Uviyamai Ekra means every day I call out to God. That's pasuk Aleph and Beis, okay? But then Gimel, he clearly is talking about the bad stuff that's circling him, and then the Radak on Daled says Uvashem Hashem Ekra, Radak Kishayiti B'Tzaros V'ani B'Shem Hashem Ekra. So that's when he's in a case of Tzara, then he calls to Hashem. Vayisi Omer Hashem Malta Nafshi. Hashem save my soul. Ana is Lashon Tzachina Ubakasha. Okay. So there's two Kriyas Hashem here. There's the ones the everyday ones, and then there's the ones when he's in a case of Tzara. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that the Kriyas Hashem is only Yesara.
That's true. The first one is Koli and Takununai. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because I guess Takunun usually think it's Yesara.
Right. Takunun is Bakasha. That's definitely true. Yeah. I guess I was saying when I said Ubashem Hashem Ekra, I was thinking the Ekra. Because he does say Ekra in the second one. In the second podcast, yeah. But you're right, it doesn't say Shem Hashem. I assume it's not B'Hem Avodah Zarah though. And in fact, the Radak actually says, if you look at the small Radak on Beis, Kihita Avnali Vani B'chol. Oh, it is B'chol Yamai. I meant to make that bigger. B'chol Yamai Ekra Lo Ezra Lo Azara V'lo Luzulaso. So he's calling to God for help, but not necessarily in a Sarah help. Okay, yeah. Okay, so then skip to Hey. Chanun Hashem. God is gracious. Lefika ha'isi kore elav. Therefore, I call out to him. Kihu chanun v'tzadik u'merachem, because he is gracious, righteous, and merciful. Okay, we didn't say what that is. Vav shomer p'sayim Hashem. So that was the idea you summarized. Amar hapetish in yodea tachbulos lehinatam mitarato. The naive simpleton who doesn't have strategies to escape from his tzara. Hakel shomer. God protect him. Kishen mitim Allah bikona, when he puts his trust in him. So first question we asked was, how does that work? Like, how does it work? A Pesi does not seem to be worthy of the Hashgacha, and we see Pesayim being destroyed all the time in Mikle when they're not putting their trust in God. So, like, do you say it's some sort of magic thing? Not magic, but you say it's some sort of like cheat code type thing? Yeah, where like if you are a Pesi and you trust in God, then He'll protect you. Like you somehow become deserving of protection. In which case, maybe we should all just remain Pesayim, and just take the easy route, or is there some other way? So, what do we say for that?
Right. Well, the Pesayim don't have any other tools in the toolbox.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's going to work, though, right?
Well, yeah, they're better off being Pesayim.
Yeah, right. So that was what we basically said, is that if they're not B'tei Hashem, then they're just being a Pesi and Pesi Yamin l'chol davar, and they'll be destroyed. But a Pesi who trusts in Hashem, number one, because he's a Pesi, he won't get caught up in all of the insecurities and anxieties and self-doubts and doubts about Hashem that plague other people. There's a sort of like single-minded trust. And trusting in Hashem, we said, means not only in your mind, but also like doing the actions that are in line with that, So we said that it's going to turn out better for that person, whether there's a special hashgacha or not. It is going to turn out better for that person because he's following the prescribed route and he's doing it without conflict and without getting caught up in his own kohi v'otam yadi mentality, because he's not using takbulos, right?
Right.
And then we transfer that to this next statement in the Radak. Also, the chacham will not should not trust in his wisdom and his strategies, because they won't help him if God doesn't favor him. But he mentioned the Pesayim because they don't have any other route. Amar, he said, David, who's not a Pesi, is saying, when I was in a situation of lowliness and affliction, and I had to rely on, and the only one I had to rely on was God, then I was like the Pesi in that case. Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing. So he's really in a better position than the Pesi, but the difficulty is he has to hit the rock bottom of having no other recourse in order to be able to get into the same headspace that the Pesi's in. Mm-hmm. But then once he does that, he's better off because he's actually relying on Yidiyat Hashem. Yeah, okay. Zion, Shuvi Nafshi. So the pasuk said, return my soul to your rest. So Amar, Kishayisi Batsara, Hayisi Omer Lanafshi. When I was in Sarah, I would speak to my soul and say, Shuvi Limunuchachli, return to your rest. Mihat Sarah Sha'adba, from the tsar that you're in, Shuvi Lakel Yisbarach, Kihu Yihya L'chal Menucha. Basically, return to God and he'll provide tranquility for you. Okay. Yud. So this is the Kol Ha'adam Kodev. So this is where Radak kind of revealed the context here. So look at the underlined part. Afilu Bisman Shayisi Nechpaz. So this is when he's fleeing from Shaul. Even the time when I was scared, Va'ani and Ma'od, and I was afflicted exceedingly, Hayisi Omer, I would say, Kol Adam She'omer Shaloti Yeli Hamalucha. Any person who said to me that I'm not going to have the kingship, Kozevhu, he's a liar. V'zohi Ha'amana Gadola. This is a great belief. Skip to the next underline. The Esachi Pazon Hayim Mefafet Shiamut Biad Shaul. At the time of being, of my anxiety, I thought I was afraid that I was going to be killed by Shaul. The Acharkach Meshiv El Libo Omer Zeh Lo Yitachin. So then he responded to his heart and said, "That's not going to happen." God promised me that I'm going to rule. Vani Mamin Bo, and I believe in him, or I trust him. Afal Pi Shani B'Sakana Gadola, even though I'm in great sakana. Danger. First, he was afraid and said, I've been cast off from your eyes. But the conclusion of his thought, he had trust in God, and he said in his heart, every man is a liar, any man who says that I'm not going to rule. Okay, so that's him expressing that he went through this conflict of not trusting in God and being afraid, and then talking to himself and saying that no, God told me I'm going to do this, and so I'm going to prevail. And we kind of asked, I think we asked, that's great for someone in David's position when God gives you a direct promise that you're going to rule, and even that's not so great. Like again, the Avos, we're always questioning whether they're going to have Zechuyot or not, But what about us? Like, how can we apply this to our situation?
Right.
Yeah. All right. So then Ma'afiv Lashem, we're almost at the end of the review here. So that is Ma Gmul Uma Mincha Ucha Lahashiv Al Kol HaChesed Asaimi. So what payback or tribute can I repay him for all the kindness he did with me? Kol Tagmul Lo Yalai, Kol Tagmulav Shagamalani Heim Alai. Okay, so I forgot, maybe I didn't do this, read this right last time. Kol Tagmulav, all of his kindnesses, Shagamalani, that he bestowed upon me, Heim Alai. They're upon me, meaning I'm indebted. Okay. Lahashiv kenegdan imuchal, to pay them back if I can. I don't have any merit such that he did for me what he did. Everything is chesed from God. Like Yaakov said, I've been diminished by all of your kindnesses that you've done for your servant. So that we said, what's this idea of like repaying a debt? Right? Like you can't give anything to God. So what's the idea? Okay, Kos Yeshua's Etza. So he first gave an explanation which said that Kos is a chalik. Then he says Klomar, it could be pshat. When I make a simcha, I'll lift a cup of wine and give thanks to God in front of many people. And mention his salvation that he did for me. Then later on, that line of B'Shem Ekra, I'll call it B'Shem again. K'moshe Hayisi. Osa be'es hatzara, like I did in the Eis Tzara. So we've seen 3 kriyos so far. There's the Kore b'chol yom, then there's Kore be'es tzara, and then there's Kore bizman teshua. Oh, he says, K'moshe hayiti osa be'es tzara, tzagam v'yagon emsa u'v'shem Hashem ekra, kain be'es harvacha, and then at a time of relief. Okay, those two kriyos Hashem. And then the last pasuk, the last thing is the Nadarim, right? What was emphasis on Nadarim? Nadarim Nadarti Kashaisi Boreach V'Goleh, the Nadarim that I vowed when I was fleeing and in exile or wandering. Imi Shiveni Hakelis Barak Levesi, if God returns me to my house, Otham Nadarim Eshalom Ata Neged Kolmo. I'll pay them back in front of everyone. And then he says the thing about Ani Abducha ben Amasecha, that last underline. Amar Ani Abducha Mishnei Panim. I'm your servant from two ways. Ha'echad Shihir Galti Atmi Bovasecha. I've accustomed myself in your avoda. V'od ki haya b'tivi gamkein imi haisa amasecha. And by nature, because my mom was also your maidservant. Okay, so that's the review. Okay, few more points here from the Meiri, and then we'll be ready to try to tackle the main idea. So Meiri on Malta Nafshi. So God saved my soul. Okay, so what does he mean here? So what would you have said? God saved my soul. What would you say that means?
Save me.
He saved me, right? So Meiri first says something which I edited out, which is he saved my life. But then he says a different possibility, which I like better. Ratzalomar shabihi natslu min hatsaros hamatridos otso hitzatek nafsho ba'avodas hakel v'timalet mishchisus haguf. So he's taking it nefesh is soul, not life soul. So when he's saved from the tsaros that were burdening him, he will involve his soul in avodas hakel and be saved from the harms of the body. So that's not saying God is saving him from, like, obviously God is saving him from bodily death because he mentioned that earlier, but now he's saying God is saving my soul to be involved in avodas Hashem. Okay, next point. On test, uvishuaska ani boteach, as Hallel l'fnei Hashem b'artos hachaim. So do you remember what Radak said about artos hachaim, where that is? Israel, right? Yeah. So Meiri says, Klomar, this is what I think we said that we thought it was, Bolam HaChaim, in the land of life, L'olam Haba. Ki Aretz ye Amer Lifamim al Olam Haba. Ki Amro L'olam Yershu Aretz. O Remez al Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so either it's talking about Olam Haba or Eretz Yisrael. V'hakol kavana achas, but it's all one intent. Ki Eretz HaChaim L'ma'ala Yoshveha. It is the land of the living based on the virtue of its inhabitants. So whether those inhabitants are souls in Olam Haba or whether it's people living a life of avodas Hashem in Eretz Yisrael. So that's the main thing. Is he basically saying, I want to be restored to the land where I can be involved in real chaim. Okay. Next, Ba'amar he'emanti ki adaber. I trusted when I spoke. Klomar kishahayisi medaber dvarim elu be'atzmi. So again, we have the Meiri emphasizing now that he's talking to himself. Okay, when I spoke these things to myself, la'orer nafshi b'bitachon hakel, to arouse my soul in the trust in God, lo haya dibor hapeh levad. It wasn't just verbal. About shehe'emanti, I believed, kain b'soch libi emuna chazaka, in my heart with a strong belief. Ad she'ani aniti me'od, the point where I was exceedingly humbled. Klomar nichnati, he takes it as humble, not afflicted. Nichnati me'od l'rov tsarosai tachlis hafna'a. I was humbled by all of my tsaros, with the utmost of hafna, which sounds like a similar idea to the Pepsi situation, where like you realize I have no other recourse but to turn to God. Then 11, when I was in a frenzy to flee here and there because of fear, the more I was humbled and nechbaz, everyone wanted me to die and to be lowered. But the more they did that, the more I trusted in God. And I said, anyone who plots against me, his plans and hopes should be thwarted. So he's saying, Kol Adam Kozev is not every person is deceitful, but every person should be thwarted, because Kozev could be thwarted. That's the same one that Radak quoted. So someone who's in Sarah, he's in conflict. Okay. But the believer, the one who trusts God, he resolves in his mind to trust in God. And then the last one is a similar to Radak also. So avdika means I cling to your avoda. Uben amasecha, and the son of your maidservant, klomar, lo ke'eved halakuach min hashuk, not like a slave you buy at the market, shalonis gadol b'avodas ha'adam, who was not raised in the avodah of the master. Ramaz lios hachanatzo b'kachmi betin imo. So again, here he's emphasizing that he is a servant in terms of devotion to avodah Hashem. Okay, so those are all the clues. So do we have an approach for either uniting the two halves or a main idea or answering any of the questions? Oh, you want? Well, I'll do one more clue, okay? Because we said this already last time, but I'll just point out that it's a clue. Let's review 113, 114, 115 again. Okay. So what was the theme of 113?
God is above, so
Yeah, Hashem is above the social order and overturns it as he wishes. Okay, and then 114.
Not only is he above the social order, but he's above the natural order.
Is above the natural order, right, and overturns it as he wishes. 115. Lolanu. And Hashem Zechron Yivarech.
Yeah. So, like, yeah, like we are doing God's ratzon, so we should be preserved. And
Yeah.
destroy those who are not doing God's ratzon.
Yeah. One important point, though, that's correct, but it started off with the Lolanu that we have no zechuyos, and then it talked for the most of the first half about the Obdei Avodah Zarah. So what was the depiction of them?
That they don't. Well, I mean, factually, it was they can't do anything. They're like mute and stuff, and so they're the people who follow them should also be like
right. So the Obdei Avodah Zarah, they trust in their idols, which are inanimate, and inanimate, and therefore they will have the same fate as them. But we trust in Hashem and are devoted to Kiddush Shemo Hagadol, and he will bless us and preserve us on that basis. Okay, now we're ready for ours. And we notice one stylistic change in ours compared to the first three. Major stylistic change.
This one is personal.
This one's personal. Now we got this. Yeah.
Oh, and the other one was 115 was talking about like the name Israel as a nation.
Yeah. That was the base our own base Yisrael and Yirei Hashem. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And this one, you could, I mean, I'm not sure if this is like a full idea, but it seems like differently from the other ones, it's really talking about the like personal hashgacha.
Yeah. Yes. You want me to elaborate on that a little bit? So this is taking, so the first three were really set up. Okay. Yeah, we were. Yeah. But it was a setup, and this is now dealing with how you apply this to your life. Okay. The first two were set up in terms of the premises. Third one was in terms of how it relates to the national mission. And this is now in terms of your life when you're in Saros.
Interesting, because I usually would have thought of like I usually think of it the opposite way, as like the personal hashgacha is like a more essential idea. Like Abraham,
right?
And the national hashgacha is like just an extension.
Yeah, that's true. That is an interesting thing.
But maybe
let's put that as a question when we see. At some point, God willing, all of Hallel,
right.
Then we can see the full arc.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is the logical order though of like let's say you're not talking about 113 and 114 because it makes sense to say the premises first, right? And then actually it's interesting because
Sorry,
the
what
other
was
thing
the
we have to
question?
remember, the question was Zeb was saying like usually the we only have hashgacha because Abraham did. So the personal idea of the hashgacha about the avos really seems to come first, not the national mission hashgacha. But what we also have to remember is this is Hallel HaMitzri. And so everything is in the context of Hallel over us being taken out of Mitzrayim. That's how it starts off. So maybe it's starting off in that national place.
Right.
Yeah.
It could also just be going, like general to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or look, there's the fact that you just mentioned. I think it goes from that also is the fact that we only. I mean, it's true. It doesn't mention the avos, but we have. Our individual zechut is largely going to come from our membership in the nation, and the nation has it because of the avos. It's just not going all the way back to the avos because that's not where the Hallel starts. Yeah.
So experientially, this is the correct one. Like,
Yeah.
For any particular person.
Yeah, certainly for the Seder.
Yeah.
Certainly for saying Hallel over Yitzis Mitzrayim. Yeah. Which I guess we still haven't. I mean, we didn't investigate this, but we mentioned the possibility that this might be the only Doraisa Hallel.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
If you say it's part of the Doraisa of Sipur.
Right. If you're not a Slav.
What Sipur? Yeah.
Right.
So you want to hear my theory, and then we could work it all out? Because again, this is not put together. Okay. So the way I look at this is, so you heard half of it, which is this is about how to apply this to the individual, but this is giving you a suite of tools for SUITE, a suite of tools for cultivating bitachon and Hashem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I actually want to start at the end, because the end is what I have the clearest. Okay, the Nadarim. Okay, so what's the deal with the Nadarim and the paying God back?
Yeah. I mean, that's the way that you normally recognize that someone did you a favor.
Right, payback. Right. Okay, good. That's a valid point. Right. So you're using the same human lashon b'nei adam, but in action.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the psyche. That's definitely fine. But I guess the question is like. The way he talks about it is as though he is in debt, right? Like how can I ma'ashiv lashem kol tagmulohi alai, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like to me that seems like going slightly more than you did something good for me, I'll do something good for you.
Well, you did so much good for me that I.
Okay, so one angle, right? One angle is that it's because you've done so much for me.
Mm-hmm.
And not that he doesn't say that, but he gives a different argument for why I'm in total debt now.
It seems like he's tying it into like the publicity and like the Kiddush Hashem. Like maybe
Okay,
if
so
Hashem is saving him for a purpose, he needs to like follow through with it.
Okay, that's definitely true, and that's going to be part of it. But in terms of the indebtedness, though,
right, that's like the way that he's paying back.
That's the way he's paying back, right? I'm asking about the in the Radak, for example, the I mean, just the thing that I said, the where is it? Yeah, ma gmul ma mincha ucha lahashiv lo al kol hachasash asemi kol tagmulo shigmal hemalai lahashiv kenegdan imuchal. That's the point. Is I don't have any zuchuts that he did what he did for me. Okay, so this is a point that I think is significant. If you want to get a chumash, you can. I meant to say before the thing. So I think I wrote about this. I'm not 100% sure. In the famous Kochiv Otamiyadi, in Devarim Tess. So we know that the first mistake is when God does good stuff for you and then you attribute it to yourself. Classic mistake, right? But there's a second mistake that doesn't get as much press. Let's see here. He says, so in Devarim 8, chapter 8, Pasuk, Yudalid. etc. He did all these things. Then Yud Ches, Yud Zayin. My might and the might of my hand made me this wealth. And then it says, remember Hashem your God, that he's the one who gave you power to make wealth. Okay, so that's mistake number one. But let's say you did not make that mistake. So what's the second mistake that Klal Yisrael are prone to making when God does all this good stuff for them?
That like it's a reward you deserve from Hashem.
That they deserve it. Okay, so look at the next perek in Tes. Okay, Tes Daled. So don't say when God in your heart when God drives out all the nations before you. Lemor saying, due to my righteousness, Hashem brought me to inherit the land. Hazot. And because of the wickedness of the nations. Not out of the righteousness and uprightness of your heart did you come to inherit their land. So that part you got right. It was because of the wickedness of the nations that Hashem drove them out. And in order to establish that which Hashem promised to Abraham, to your fathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. This is the third time he's saying this. Hashem lokacha nosen lecha as haaretz tova hazos l'rishta ki am kshe orach because you're stubborn, and he goes on to talk about that. So the mistake is you think, oh, I guess I wasn't sharing that. Sorry, Tamar. On the screen, or Tamar and everyone else. I'm only saying Tamar because I only see Tamar. I'm going by policy to only talk to people who have their cameras on. What do you call it? So the mistake is like this. When you are in, I think Isaac quoted no atheist in a foxhole last time. When you're in the state of Sarah, it's very easy to turn to God and to recognize your lowliness. But the problem is, what are you going to do when you get out? Okay, so how does a netter, how does a netter solve that?
Forces you to, like, you can't, usually your feeling of indebtedness to God is dependent on just your practical situation.
Yeah.
And your emotions like flip flop.
Yeah.
Forth. But if you make a netter, then you kind of lock your indebtedness in the state that you were in.
Right, which is a literal indebtedness, right? I like the way you said lock it in. I use the metaphor of an anchor, but locking and anchors are fine. You freeze frame, right? Your feeling of indebtedness by literally creating a debt that you then pay back afterwards. So it would remind you intellectually of it, but then it also is in line with the derech lashon b'nei adam of like the giving back. And it is another benefit of it is what did the Meiri that we read like? Did you glean anything from the Meiri's whole approach? I mean, I know that's kind of a trick question. Oh, hi, Isaac. Now I can talk to Isaac. Meiri put the emphasis. Oh, I know you too. Okay. yeah, all the faces are coming out. The emphasis of the Meiri was on avodas Hashem. Okay, that first of all, he's saying that God saved my soul. He's recognizing that his soul is the thing that is important, not his body, not his political power, not his status or whatever. It's his soul. Then he keeps on saying that, emphasizing that the only reason I want God to save me is so as Hallel lifnei Hashem ba'artzos chaim, in the land of avodas Hashem, and I am your servant, the son of your maidservant. I'm davak ba'avodas Hashem. So he's reiterating the fact that he's reiterating the value system of avodas Hashem. And the cool thing about a netter, and the Rambam says this explicitly in Hilchos Nedarim, is netter is a form of avodas Hashem. And what makes it unique is in terms of, let's say like korbanos, right? You need, korbanos require a basic mikdash and stuff. What do nedarim require in order to do the act of making a netter?
Basic.
No. Nothing. Right? So it is an act of avoda that you can do when you're in Sarah and Boreach from Shaul and in Galus. So you're doing two things. You're doing an act of avoda to demonstrate and strengthen your value system of avodas Hashem, and to lock in that hoda'ah freshness of the indebtedness to pay back later on. And then when you pay it back, how does David pay it back? Now this gets to what Tamar was saying.
By
publicizing it, right? So it really is an interesting thing that like it keeps you in the framework of avodas Hashem and bitachon to Hashem, and it also does something. And this is again, I'm kind of like scattering all the ideas onto the table here, but the main idea of Viktor Frankl. I haven't fully finished Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. You know the idea behind it?
Sort of. He's in the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Meaning.
There you go. Right, is that having a meaning and having a like prospects or a thing that you're working on can actually like give you the will to survive. So when you make a neder in a situation of sorrow, you're affirming your goal and your values of avodas Hashem, but also making a plan for the future that is an act of avodas Hashem. So in terms of like psychologically, philosophically, like hashgathically, mitzvah-wise, it's like the perfect tool for using when you're in a star, which I don't know. I have not done Nadarim, but like I think of tefillah as the main thing, but Nadarim is like what's being highlighted here as like the remedy,
Also calling out him.
Oh, okay. So this is now the suite of tools. So this was one tool,
Right.
okay? But another tool, so let me just name a bunch of the tools and check my notes here that I wrote down on the bottom page. So he has tefillah. He has calling out to tefillah every day, then tefillah be'es Sarah, then hodah kriya b'shem Hashem, kiddush Hashem barabim through the nadarim and through the zevach todah, okay? Shomer Pathaim Hashem is another tool of getting into that mentality of the passive, recognizing that you don't have anyone else to turn to. Talking to himself, which the Radak and the Meiri talked about, of actually addressing the doubt, and when you are in a situation of doubt, you're talking to yourself to reaffirm the assurances that you have that Hashem, again, in David's case, we have to work on how this applies to our case, but in how in David's case, Hashem had promised him he was going to be king, and so he has reason to believe that is a hashgachic trend, and then focusing, recalibrating your identity as a nefesh that's Oved Hashem, as opposed to like a goof that's like wandering around or being afflicted, So that's like so now everything's on the table. Okay, so that's the approach that I have for this perek. So the purpose of the perek, and there's still work to be done, but the purpose of the perek is to take all those abstract ideas of bitachon, and the question is like, okay, yeah, Hashem can overturn the natural order. Yeah, Hashem can overturn the social order, flip those. And like the Ovdei Avodah Zarah are taunting us and trusting in their idols, and I can see that they're going to be, destined for destruction, and we're trusting in Hashem, and He'll bless us. But that's all very nice on an abstract national level. But what if I am fleeing from Shaul or I'm in an Esara? What can I do to not make myself be posei al shtei seifim, and to trust in Hashem and to tap into that hashgacha? And that's what this perek is like presenting. That's the theory.
Huh. Right. So it really does make sense. The order really.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like starting with the Havmina, that it would only be in that, or not a Havmina,
Yeah.
but like looking at that and being like, how can I relate to that?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So if it, well, I think the reason the order is still conceptual, I think to me that makes the most sense. It's stating the premises.
Okay.
And then it goes to the individual. I hear what you're saying also, is that like, I mean, what would happen if it started with this, I guess is the question.
Yeah. It would.
Because like I'm saying that it just, what reason do you have to believe that these types of things could happen? Like if people are trying to kill you and prevent you from being melechs, like that's it, unless you have the premises of God can overturn the social order and the natural.
Oh yeah,
order.
that definitely.
And yeah.
Just flipping the third and fourth.
They're in the fourth. Oh, okay, fine. They're in the fourth, right? Yeah. I mean, I guess the national the other reason I think the national comes first is we have a lot more evidence for God caring for the nation, and it's a lot, and the assurances are much more firm, that the whole kareno love, but for the individual, it's much harder to see that, yeah.
Right. So in that, for those, then it's not a conceptual order. It's like a
didactic order.
Yeah.
Meaning like it's giving you the examples that you can agree upon.
Yeah.
First, or are you saying something different?
No. Yeah. Basically.
Yeah.
I feel like this order also just makes sense in terms of, I guess you were saying didactic order, like the effect Like
Yeah.
you're sort of, I feel like the last one was more like, I mean, maybe you could say it wasn't really about an individual person, but it just seemed like the more like general abstract principle. And this
Yeah.
was like, this is almost like the question that you would have after you hear that is like, okay, that's all very well and good, but like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
ready
That's
for my
definitely how I'm
life, right?
taking
It's
it.
like,
Yeah.
and then it's a sort of I feel like it answers it in a very uh like concrete way that happened, you know.
Yeah.
David's
Yeah.
bringing this example from his life.
Exactly. So I want to segue in the last 4 minutes, even there's more to be done here, but uh, I want to segue into a question that I started discussing with Isaac, but we didn't actually have the discussion yet, is that if you compare Mishlei to Tehilim, the ideas in Mishlei are much easier to relate to. I think we can all agree. Okay. Tehilim is more abstract. And I think this perek is both addressing how to deal with it, but I think we also have to learn how to use the perek. Okay. So we mentioned in the beginning of the year that there's only an idea of saying Tehillim. There's no idea of like saying Mishlei. Like I'm gonna go say 5 perakim in Mishlei, you know. So I think that technique that David mentions in here of talking to himself is the method of Tehillim. I mean, the Sefer HaChaim said that explicitly. I think I read this on the first session of that the idea of Tehillim protecting you is that it arouses the soul who knows the idea to take shelter in God and trust in Him. You know, the Sefer HaChaim in the Los of Hover Haver of saying incantations when he deals with the question of how can you say Tehillim to shield you. You know, and that's the explanation he gives. You know, so like these are all tools that that you, in order to actually make these real to you, you have to be saying these and applying them to your situations, and you actually have to be using these things. Meaning, let's say like this thing of calling out to Hashem every day, calling out to Hashem the Stara, and then calling out to Hashem when when you are saved or when you have relief. Like what you're doing there is you are making your reliance on the Shem Hashem and the reality of knowledge of God not dependent on the fluctuations in your own life. Mm-hmm. You know, you're treating those as the reality, and you're doing it in the good times and in the bad times, and you're constantly saying it, and then that makes it real to you, so that when you are in an A star, then you'll be able to make recourse to that. You know, same thing with the publicly thanking Hashem for all these things. You know, I think that like sometimes people who are much more on the rationalist, philosophical side, have they're disinclined to, thank Hashem publicly or talk about Hashem in terms of being a force in their life, because it kind of presupposes like, oh, I'm really on that high level to be able to to do that, or like how arrogant, but like this is how you make Hashem relate to you, and this is like not make Hashem relate to you. This is how you develop a relationship with Hashem and make Hashem a reality in your life, is by talking about it, weaving it into the experience of your life. Same thing with the. Again, I'm not advising you to start making Nadarim all around, but like if we knew how to responsibly make Nadarim, then that would be another valuable tool. And there are ways you could do that, like let's say like a Sudas Hoda or something like that, that are not exactly as strong as a Neder. So I think this does speak to that. Mishlei is easier to relate to because you make decisions no matter what you're doing in your life, and you can either make smart Mishlei decisions or dumb Pesi Ksiel Avil decisions. Tehillim, you have to actively apply this new perspective to your life and be saying it and talking about it and make it into the language in which you experience life.
I feel like there's an aspect of Mishlei that's sort of like that.
Yeah.
Making like Mishlei classes.
Yes, there's definitely that, and there are psukim in the intro to Mishlei, which you probably do with Rabbi Zimmer, is conversing in Mishlei and talking about it, and it's with you, and you're making an ornament around your neck and a garland for your head, whatever those things are. Yeah, you're right about that also. I guess the difference is Mishlei doesn't enter into your metaphysics in the same way. And I feel like rewiring your metaphysics is a lot different than rewiring your habits, which is much more what Mishlei is doing.
Are you saying it's easier, or
harder for metaphysics? I think, yeah.
Okay, is that possibly dependent on personality?
Possibly, yeah. I think that I'm not saying this facetiously, but I think the Peti has easier time with that also, and I do think that it could be an obstacle to view God and His hashgacha as too remote. but obviously the other side is danger also. That's the real hard thing, is like, developing a relationship with an unknowable God.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so let's plan on this. Okay, the next perek is only 2 psukim, right? So let's plan to think about this between now and Thursday, try to refine stuff on Thursday, and then let's try to do in its entirety the next 2. How hard could it be to do 2 psukim, right? We could do 5 mafarkim on it, and then still have time for, talk afterwards. Yeah. Okay, so I think I hopefully this is like an approach. I mean,
Yeah. Cool.
So yeah, at the very least, it's enough of an approach to fit into the sequence of Tehilim, so that we have, this is definitely bringing it into the personal, Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
Until next time. See ya.
Do you want?
Sure.
Yeah.
You're welcome.